Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining for this presentation. And I am Dr. Sanjeev Sharma from Perth, Western Australia. I'm a member of Heartfulness Institute for now more than 2 decades. And this organization has a worldwide presence. And today it's a great opportunity to speak with all of you, with the researchers, faculties, and students to talk about how some of the ancient wisdoms of our dietary practices have made a difference in today's lifestyle. Now, I practice as a consultant psychiatrist in Perth, and my special area of interest is in the area of substance use disorder or drugs and alcohol. And I come across a lot of people who have got challenges with their emotional issues, which starts from the young age, but later on they get trapped into bad food habits and then trajectory starts. And now we are all living in an unprecedented time where many things have been going on in people's life, and how overall things can have changed. So let me talk to you about how the dietary factors have played a big role in our overall well-being, and whether these things have changed and how we can make a difference if we want to move forward in our life. So I will speak for about close to 45 minutes and to 50 minutes, and then we can have some few questions. You can type it in the chat box so that I can go through them. So let's start. And as you could see that most doctors, which are years behind their available medical literature and continue to practice what they learned in the medical school. And this is something I often say in my presentations to my colleagues, that we should not be practicing medicine as a religion. Otherwise, we'll be fixated. We should be moving on, and that's along with the science. And a lot of times when the new research is available, we don't realize that how much some of these changes have made a difference in people's individuals' life, some changes in our dietary habits. So there are certain misconceptions which we all hold, and these misconceptions are related to, we all think that we are evolved, but reality is that most of our ancestors were much more robust as compared to what we are now. And we have, unfortunately, all the modern society have become consuming a lot of sad diet, which is we call as the standard Australian or American diet. And that's what we are bearing the consequences of, a lot of things which we have. So a few things which are important, that nowadays we are actually, if you see, compare the two persons going on for a walk. The person on the left is mindful, who is full of different, and he's not able to be enjoying the present. But as far as this dog is concerned, he's mindful. So that's the one letter word of L can make a huge difference in the way we see our surroundings. So a lot of times we are thinking about the past, worried about the future, but we are not connected with the present. And this is where the core philosophy of mindfulness is there. And when we practice heartfulness-based meditation practices, and you would have heard from few of my colleagues, presenters, that how we can connect our mind and bring it to standstill. And I would strongly advise you to attend to some of these sessions, so that, and also practice it to make a difference in your life. So let's start with the Australian Health report card. And
Dr. Sanjeev, you will be sharing some screen?
Sure.
Yeah.
So, okay. So let's start with the Australian Health report card. And if you look into the Australian Health report card, all of us are going to live on an average up until 79 to 80 years, which is a very good span as compared to our predecessors. Like you can see that other countries are not far behind. But one thing which is very important is that, are we going to add life to years or years to life? If you want to add life to years, then the very likely chance is that you have to make changes into the way we practice our health, and that's where things will start to change if we start making changes the way we practice our health. And a lot comes about the eating habits, because if we don't change our eating habits, chances are that it will not make a difference.
Hey, Dr. Sanjeev,
So,
just sorry to interrupt. We are actually
yeah.
not seeing any screen.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh. Just a moment.
Yep, all good. We can see the screen now. Great.
Oh, sorry
thanks.
about that. Sorry about that. So, So as I was talking, that there are a lot of misconceptions which we all hold about our health, but chances are our ancients were much more mindful. So I just talked about it. So let's look at the Australian Health Report Card. I mentioned about our age of our people, that very likely chance that we are going to live longer, but we have to add our life to years rather than years to life. Now, one of the sad part, this is a data from Australian Bureau of Statistics, which collects that 92% of Australians do not eat 5 serves of veggie every day, and children's are even worse. So a lot of you who have been listening, you have to think back and say that, have we made some basic changes to our diet, which has been the major reasons why there are difficulties. And when we don't have adequate amount of good healthy fibers in our diet, then those bugs which are sitting in the extreme end, which are colon, are not going to be fed, and they starve. And when they are starved, then our health can be affected. So it is very, very important that we needs to look into our dietary habits, where fibers needs to be increased. Now, Australia is a country where we have too much of excess weight and not enough exercise. That's a data. It's not in our favor, and we are becoming an obese country as the age are passing. So this is something, again, an alarming concern, which needs to be again look into. And 57% of Australians do not exercise enough to meet the recommended guidelines. And as a cumulative effect of all these challenges, we do have an impact on how the diseases can be ramping, and some of them can be beyond control. And I will just highlight in a few minutes. Now, this is a slide which was from very scary, that a newborn, when born, can be exposed to more than 280 toxic chemicals. And there have been some studies done internationally where they have found that even the mother's breast milk can be very, very toxic, where the cutoff levels of certain pollutants can be very high. Now, you can see that the fate of these children who are born in this environment, how vulnerable they are, and they can be eventually a burden to the society, to all the tax givers. And this is a classic example, is the autism, which is rise in our society. So I'll show you something about that as well. Now, in Australia, we are one of the highest antibiotic users in the world. Okay, and a substantial chunk has been shown that normally most of the time when you are going to your GP, there's a chance that you may have a sore throat, and you will be either offered the antibiotics which may not be needed, and simply basic managements like gargling the throats or with the salt water could be good enough, but that doesn't happen. Now, when we have an antibiotics in our system, what happens is that it creates an environment where our gut biodiversity changes. It's like a weed killer, okay? Because if we take too much of weed killer, we kill all the plants. So when we take too much of antibiotics, we kill all these microbiome. And as a result of that, that symbiotic relationship within the gut environment can be challenging. Now, as I was talking earlier, you can see that from 1975 onwards, and this was the last data 2013, which I could find out, but sure there are much more. And I've been looking into some studies that now the incidence of autism is 1 in 30, something like that. So every child, 30 children's born, there's a chance that one of them. It's a striking figure. It is not a figure which we should be pleased about, because whenever a child is born with a neurodevelopmental delay, it exhausts an enormous amount of our resources, both at a personal level, which is the parents, and at the society level when these people grow up. So this is the data from looking into the NDIS participants and along the states. You can see that Northern Territory is the highest, followed by Western Australia, and then the other states are like that. So certainly some states have a higher autism rates as compared to others. What could be the reason? Maybe that particularly in Northern Territory, it's a sparsely populated and more indigenous community, where some of the communities have healthcare facilities not up to the standards, and because of variety of reasons. Now, this is a study from about the NAPLAN score results and the lead levels. You can see that when the lead levels rises on the right, the numeracy, grammar, reading, writing, numeracy affects significantly. Now, lead has been now removed from paint and petrol, and there has been studies shown that when the amount of lead is increased in the environment, there's a corresponding rise in violent crime 2 decades later, and it can have a permanent effect on kids' IQ and behaviors, and particularly mental health areas. And some of these things are, first of all, not routinely tested. So usually whenever children with some of these spectrum disorders comes up, they should be tested for a wide variety of things. And blood is not the good medium for everything. There are certain other tests which are used, particularly testing their mineral balance in their tissue samples, like hairs is one of the ways to know about the lead levels. But nowadays we see if the lead has gone down, there is a mercury, arsenic, aluminium, and some other heavy metals are also seen. Exposures are there, particularly if you are eating too much of canned fish. Now, economic cost of autism, as I've already said, there is an exponential rise, and that's where majority of our tax dollars are going. The hard fact is the soil quality and pesticide use in Australia is very high. Okay, we know that we are a separate island, and we have got one of the most poor soil in the world. And it's not nutrient rich because there is very limited amount of tectonic and activities, and there is not much rivers floating around, which will bring the diversity. And use of pesticides, there is an increased rate of glyphosate use, and resistance across the weeds have been going up. And we are not far from US. And so especially when we are buying some glyphosate from our local supermarkets or the stores, you will see that it's not doing any justice. Rather, we are creating further damage to the soil. We often have heard about Roundup. There are several countries in the world who have banned this liquid, but in Australia, we have looks like a slow political will, and WHO has caused it as probably it causes cancer. Now, it's our individual responsibilities where we can actually, I don't know whether you know, but we can ask the local council where your 100 meters around your house Roundup should not be used on the verge. And several councils I'm aware of now using steam to kill the weeds on the verge. And that is something should be more propagated, and we should ask our council members, and that we should be moving in this direction. Until otherwise, things will not change. Because of glyphosate, what happens is that it creates an environment, it creates changes in our enzymes, absorption of nutrients, and also leads to storage of neurotransmitters, which are where the mental health challenges comes up with this product. With the glyphosate use, there's an exponentially rise of autism. You can see on the right. There's a rise in celiac disease. There's a rise in acute renal failure. There's a rise in inflammatory bowel disease. There's a rise in hypertension. So what we do is, now we are seeing Corona, who has knocked our door. And we tend to blame the last straw. But that is not the case. What has happened is that if you look into that, we have created this toxic barrel of various insults which we have done to our system. And what has happened is that Corona has landed on the top. And think like that, there's another vaccine which is going to fix it. And unfortunately, until unless we make active changes at an individual level and at the wider level, the way we eat, chances are it's not going to be fixed. Otherwise, we'll have series of infections, inflammations, neurodegenerations, allergies, and chronic diseases. So the aim is not to just remove the symptoms, but to empty the barrel. Okay, so I hope I'm trying to make you guys all understand that this is not one thing, but there are series of things which we have done as our part of our food habits. Now, as a result of everything, when it goes up, when there is too much of stress in the system, there's a stress response is there. And this is where I see people in my professional role where a lot of mental health challenges comes up as a part of this a barrel hypothesis, where there are too much of immune system is activated. So this is a complicated slide, and I have no purpose to make things difficult. But what happens is that whenever there is a stress in our body, there's a series of chemicals released which are called as cortisol and norepinephrine. But one thing which you have to look into is that there's an activation of immune system. And when the immune system is activated, and this is what happens when we are meeting Corona, that if there is already a busy immune system, it gets overwhelmed, and a lot of people are not dying of Corona infection, but dying of manifestation of a heightened immune system. So if we can regulate our immune system, very likely chance it will help us in reducing it. Now, historically, we used to have physical threats when we were cavemen, but now the threats have changed. It can be a difficult boss, sad children, or somebody who has lost something in their life. And as a result of that, there can be a pro-inflammatory response. So if it is a short term, it's not a problem. But if it is something going on long term, then it just creates an environment where it can lead to many consequences. And particularly, you can see that there is an increased vulnerability of viral infections in this case. So stress on the left-hand side of this bell-shaped curve actually is needed, because that's where we can have improve our performance. But when it becomes overwhelmed, then the chances are our efficiency reduces, and then it leads to series of concentration difficulties, irritable, anxious, confused, fatigue. And I'm sure some of you who have been listening as a students would see that stress is needed, but when it becomes too much, then it's a problem. So how to begin? That's the biggest question for everyone. Okay, can we make a difference? We have seen that, yes, there are a lot of changes which are there, which needs to be done at an individual level, at a local level, but how we can begin. So first thing which I would like to say is there is a Sanskrit word which has been used in Indian philosophy, which we call as a sattvic lifestyle. And what it means is that we have to start looking into individual aspects of our being, which starts from our eating habits, our food, and food habits, the how we connect to the people, how we are operating in the society. Are we following any systems where we are able to balance our mind? And this is where the some of the inputs from Heartfulness Institutes comes in. And it's a, I'm sure you would have heard about it, and it's a free of cost services which you can incorporate into your life. So health is not a something which is available in the pharmacy or a supermarket. It's a cumulative effect of balancing certain aspects. So starts with the diet, then sleep, then stress, then exercise, and then the last, when you are doing it, it is the stay. So what happens is whenever we feel like we are unhealthy, the first thing is we go to our doctor or local GP and think that there's a pill which is going to give and I can enjoy things. Unfortunately, I would suggest to all of you, and I'm sure you would have heard it, that it doesn't work like that. Health is not in the form of a pill, and we wish it was, but it is not. So those people who practice lifestyle measures are actually balance and health and well-being is there. So you may go out doing some movement, which could be in the form in the ocean, in the open, connecting with people, or some quiet moments will bring us. So there have been studies done that whenever we are altruistic in our society, then the chances are that we have more optimistic. And when we give, we receive, and we also we are happy. Now, studies have also shown that faith, belief in something beyond ourselves can have a significant impact on our health. So religious practices are uh, universe role, and this is uh, considering Mother Earth and certain healthy beliefs, and the prayers plays a very big role, and it is something practices from every religious on the planet, and there is a different ways to reach uh, the higher self, but that's individual choices, but certainly some of these faiths also makes a big difference in our overall health. And when we are anxious, we are not living in the present. Okay. We are actually disconnected. Okay. And at a metaphysical level, to solve anxiety, we have to use mindfulness. So that's where the connectedness comes. Okay. Connectedness with self, with our surroundings, which will help us in moving forward. And when we are not connected, that's why when you are depressed, okay, withdrawn, isolated. So connectedness is the key. So in these times, especially when anybody is struggling, okay, and I will suggest to all of you, if you have got friends and family, okay, talk to them. Okay, a simple phone call or simple connection can be make a difference. Especially those who have been stuck in the lockdowns can make a huge difference, and at least they will see that yes, there is someone. Now, at least one positive things which we have because of this pandemic is that uh, although we cannot travel, but certainly still we can use some kind of electronic medium to connect with some our friends and families. The other thing which is very important is to change the diet. Now, if we have to change the diet, what we have to do is certain steps needs to be taken. So first thing which I always say is we have to balance the pH. Now, those who have been working in the area of science or have got in the agriculture or even working in areas where food is balancing pH is the very key to our overall well-being. Now, and there's a very famous quote that the food which we eat can be a purest form of medicine or the slow form of poison. And Otto Warrenberg, in 1931 Nobel laureate, has said that every single person who has a cancer has a pH that is too acidic. Unfortunately, is this statement still been used by people in medicine? Chances are not to that much, okay, until unless you have been dealing with holistic practitioners. A lot of times emphasis is given on the protocol of too much too much, I would say, anti-cancer drugs or other agents. But we have seen that because of changing food habits, some of the cancers have gone up exponentially, and one of them is lymphoma. So you can look into it, and there is an exponential rise, and a lot of environmental factors do play a role in that. So the way we are designed by Mother Nature. 80% of our diet should be uh, alkaline and 20% acidic. So whenever we are eating plant-based diet, we make our body alkaline. So that's the bottom line. So if there is a one take-home message from today's, that you should start incorporating more plant-based diet. And as I was said earlier, that statistics is not in our favor. So which means that very likely possibility we are not doing it. So please make an effort. When we are more acidic, we are got more negative emotions and stress. And when we are more alkaline, there is more positive emotions. So start looking into this as a part to improve your health. And we can simply learn from our cousins, chimpanzees, we have got almost 99.9% DNA shared. And the chimpanzees uh, in the world, eats a substantial amount. And some of the diseases which we have seen in humans is quite almost rare in chimpanzees. So you can see heart attacks, malarias, STDs, HIV, influenzas, hepatitis, and Alzheimer's. So possibly it could be linked to their higher use of their fiber. Now, this is a very interesting study which was actually published in one of the Sunday Times locally, is that they compared nutrient value of a lot of our foods. So you can see that broccoli, carrot, orange, spinach, potato, and other, you can see that there's a substantial drop in the key nutrient capacity, like that calcium dropped by -75 and magnesium dropped. So a lot of times we have to also look into that. Not only we have to start incorporating more fibers and fruits and vegetables in a diet, but also the quality of the produce is very important. And if in case it is not there, then the chance that it's not going to do its benefit. So sometimes roll off some supplementations based on the checking is also recommended. So the biggest example from food can be learned from queens. So they are actually raised. What happens is they are formed from the same egg, but they are raised in a special colony within that honeycomb, and they have been fed. What happens is they are fed this royal jelly. So, and royal jelly is fed to that particular larva who is destined to be queen or worker. As a result, you can see that how we can success. So there is enough examples in our society or in our surroundings from a animal or a insect kingdom where we can see importance of food and how it makes a difference. Royal jelly is available as a supplement, but it's not something which I want to promote, but you can always look into it. Now, as a psychiatrist, when I come across people, I always tell them that neurotransmitters like serotonin, melatonin, dopamine are actually like a dish, okay, which needs to be cooked. Whenever we have to cook a dish, we need ingredients. We all know that, okay, and also ingredients in particular order. So what you need is some, like, for example, if you have to cook dopamine, you need amino acids and proteins, and then you need adequate amount of zinc and multi-Bs, folate, iron. So I put a lot of emphasis on replenishing the nutrient source if they are deficient before we add a pill. Okay, it's not that people do have genetic traits which will require medications, and I'm not against that by any means, but put a lot of emphasis on the diet and lifestyle aspects. And why we should change to our alkaline food habits is because it will increase our energy levels, you will have a better digestion, we will have an easier fat loss, and your aches and pains could be less, and have a better mental focus and better mood. So there is a gut-brain connection, and your gut or your brain are intimately connected when all of us were formed in our mother's womb. And this is what and they maintain a dedicated line or a connection between them, and your gut health will directly connect it to your mental health. And this is now well proven. So what are the strategies which we could use? Okay. One thing is that we should be limiting our grain content of the meals to just one grain meal a day. Preferably, the grain meal should be somewhere around like on the lunchtime, because it takes a lot of time to digest a grain meal, and maybe and it's also should be properly cooked. So, and there should be rotations among the grain meals as well. Another strategy which we can all use is to have more sunshine. Okay, in Australia, we should not complain about lacking sunshine, because we have plenty of sunlight, and this is another reasons sunshine vitamin, which is improve our immunity. Now, this is a slightly more technical slide, but what I would say is that if you get your vitamin D levels done by your doctors, your levels are normally reported in this 120 like nanomoles, and it should be ideally in triple digits. Normally, if the vitamin D levels are suboptimal, that's where the immunity is affected. And this is what we have seen in a lot of people with corona. So another take-home message from today is have plenty of enough sunshine as a natural source of vitamin D, or build up your vitamin D where you are in the optimal physiological range. And those people who had ravages of corona are well proven to be having low vitamin D. And so this is another message which I want to say beyond making some dietary changes, including fibers and alkalinity. Another suggestion is we should be practicing intermittent fasting. So there's a very famous from Indian mother language Sanskrit called as Langanam Param Aushadam. So fasting is the greatest medicine. That's what it means. And you would have heard about different fasting methods, 16-8, 14-10, OMAD, which is 1 meal a day, or 5/2. Doesn't matter. As long as you are trying to restrict your food habits to a 7 to 8 hours window period, you will see a lot of benefits. So let's give you an example. If you finish up your dinner by 5 or 6 p.m. and you eat first meal around 9 or 10 a.m., you have already got about 16 hours. And this is something I personally use for myself to majority of the time. And if you try, it is easily achievable. And what is the benefit of fasting? When we start fasting, around 90 minutes, we see that our glucose levels peak. Around 4 hours, our stomach gets empty. And that food is digested, and 10 to 12 hours, our digestive system goes to sleep, and the body starts to release certain hormones, which are growth hormones. So when I said about critical period of 14 to 16 hours, okay, of fasting, that's where you start reaping the benefits. And if you want to extend your fast slightly more, but again, should be done under medical supervision, you can go up to 18 or 24 hours. But if you start doing around 14 hours to 16 hours of fasting, chances are you will start to reap the benefits of the ketones which are released, and body starts to repair. Now, 2016 Nobel laureate Yoshinori actually suggested this term called as autophagy. So autophagy is a term which is used where a lot of cleaning activity of the house takes place, and that's where the sleep comes in. So a lot of you guys who are it's important that you sleep on time, because if you don't sleep, then you don't repair. So one thing which you can do as a part of improving your intermittent fasting is you can have some kind of a ketogenic kind of style where you are using healthy fats in your diet. And when you are using healthy fats and proteins, then the chances are you don't break your fast, and normally you can have the benefits of the fasting. So one thing which I personally use is I make a lot of what we call as the fat-rich coffee, where you can brew your coffee, add a little bit of cream, and then MCT oil. And once you mix it up, you can make a nice blend. It improves your taste, but also helps in reducing your hunger cravings, and you can start having more benefits of repairing your body in a fasting state. And So from a religious point of view, you should not be eating anything, but from a scientific point of view, if you want to have fasting, that's the method which I would suggest, and it is well recommended and used. The last, not the least, there are role of complementary measures. Some of my, during this week, all of you would be learning and listening about role of yoga. I don't want to take up your time, but it is a very important aspect of balancing ourselves. There are several within the meditation. So again, some of my presentations would have suggested about these different methods. Now, Deepak Chopra has talked about importance of yoga in the role of harnessing the our nervous system, and I can see that some of you have been asking some questions. I will take up at the end. And what he has suggested is that once we start practicing any kind of yoga, we actually stimulate one of our essential part of our nervous system, which is our vagus nervous system. And that when that nervous system is activated, we can have love, joy, and compassion. So vagus is like a link between our stress, inflammation, and immune systems. So basically, once we can enhance the role of vagus, then the chances are that we will be able to harness it in a much better way. And what does this activation of vagus nerves do? First, it helps in improving your anxiety and mood. Okay. In the gut, what happens? It improves the release of your stomach acid and digestive enzymes. So you digest your food properly and your gut moves properly. You improve your heart rate and blood pressure. You improve your blood sugars, balances, and digestive enzymes. You actually stimulate your detox pathway through your liver. And that's again helped by if you're taking a lot of greens in your diet, as I've suggested earlier. It helps in improving the functioning of a spleen, which is regulating the inflammation. It also helps in breakdown of our fats, which is from gallbladder. And those people who do not have healthy system tends to develop a lot of gallstones. And this is why it is recommended that plant-based diet also helps in improving the liver functions and eventually the functioning of the gallbladder. And particularly if you have got low levels of certain amino acids like taurine and glycine, you are more prone to develop gallstones. It helps in improving and balancing of your kidneys so that you can water balance and the sodium and glucose excretion can be maintained, which helps in controlling your blood pressure. It helps in managing your particularly your bladder control, and also those people who have been struggling with the sexual dysfunctions or infertility or having sexual dysfunction disorder. Parasympathetic activation can make a difference rather than taking some pharmaceutical agent. So please keep a look into this as well. It also helps in improving your saliva production, and it also helps in improving your tears to your lacrimal glands. So you can see that harnessing the effect of this particular nerve can make a huge difference. The way we can see the changes. Now, the big question is, how can you stimulate the vagus nerve? Okay, it's very simple. You don't have to spend a single dollar to do it. Okay, but only thing is you have to get up and start moving. First thing, cold shower. Okay, have a look into that. Cold shower does makes a difference. Okay, when you are having a cold shower, you stimulate your vagus nerve. You stimulates the brown fat and helps in enhancing or stimulating your vagus nerve. When you are singing, chanting, gargling, doing yoga, deep breathing, laughing, probiotics exercise, and then chewing your food well, all these things stimulates. So when we start moving, we stimulate the vagus nerve. So, and certainly when we are much more conscious about ourselves, we also stimulate that vagus nerve and we are able to digest the food well. So making sure that being connected to the present is some of the key. And that's how we harness the benefits of certain lifestyle systems, which includes yoga and meditation. I'm sure most of you would have watched this documentary on Netflix or Amazon Prime, Heal. It's a must watch. Okay. Most of the presenters or the people who are interviewed are the masters in their field. You can see some of the names like Deepak Chopra, John Dispenza, and so they have done a lot of work in this area, and you can see that how the benefits of certain lifestyle interventions can make a difference in the people's life. And this was I will highly recommend to watch this. So one thing which I can summarize from this documentary is that those who have recovered from chronic diseases have done all these things in common. First thing, they radically change their diet. They take control of their health. They follow their intuition. Okay, this is where the mindfulness comes. They use certain herbs and supplements. They start releasing their suppressed emotions by certain activities. They increase their positive emotions. They're embracing the social support. That's where I've talked about earlier. Connectedness comes in, and deepening your spiritual connections and having a strong reason for living. So if we are making these changes, very likely chance that the need for depending on the healthcare system to fix our health could be minimized, because these are not something which we require. Yes, there's an effort required, but it is morely depends on starting with yourself and then starting making a body system so that things can start to change. And this is what happened with some of the individuals in this documentary who were struggling with their health. The other thing which has come up in this document is about the sound healing. Okay, now there are certain frequencies of the sounds when we hear, and certainly which can help in repairing the tissues, and certainly and particularly those sounds which can activate our parasympathetic nervous system, can help in reducing diseases, depression, and also stress. So one of the presenters on this documentary, Dr. Thompson, has talked about that at some point we all have to realize is a humanity, okay, not dividing into countries, that we are a global symbiotic relationship rather than competing with each other. Unfortunately, a lot of the key members of the world will not like these statements, but that's the truth. And also, it's been talked about that those people who attend support groups, spiritual groups, lives on average twice as longer after the diagnosis of a life-changing illness. Very profound statement. Okay, again, this is another reason why should we all making an attempt to change. Now, there's an effort from Heartfulness related to the children's, and please, I would suggest all of you to have a look into. It's called as Brighter Minds. It has got a presence in Australia as well, where if you have got young children, and even now the program has come up for adults as well, where you can use some structured brain stimulating activities, and one of them is a sound related activity program where you can enhance the benefit. And this is one of my favorite venture, because I can see from as a student of neuroscience that how changing these neuroplasticity of these young brains can make a difference and make them a healthy citizens of the world. So I will share with you some of these references of some of the documentaries which you can see on our national programs, like on Catalyst. There have been few of them here. It's like gut reaction, toxic sugar, low carb diet, and there have been good presenters. There are some other documentaries on Netflix, Game Changers and What the Health. And please watch these documentaries, because whatever I've spoken today will be expanded further when you watch. And if you watch, I'm reasonably confident that you will learn more tips from what I've talked to you today, and it could make a difference. So let's unite to make this world a better place, because this is what we all need. All need a joining hands and an open mind so that we can make a difference. And this is where I would suggest that please, all of you could start doing it. Now, tomorrow we have some around midday Eastern Standard Time and other presentations from heartfulness practitioners. And even if afterwards, if you are interested, we have a wide network of teachers available throughout Australia, and you please use their benefits. So thank you very much, and I hope it was a stimulating sessions for some of you, and hopefully we can learn from this. So I will take few of the questions. So one of the participant has asked about that, is there any role of supplements as a meal replacement? Well, I will give you an analogy because this is the best way I can explain things. Now, mainly diet and lifestyle roles plays comes in when we are trying to prevent a disease, okay? But when somebody has become sick, okay, could be a mild illness to a serious one, it is like house is on fire. When house is on fire, garden hose doesn't work. You have to call a fire brigade. The fire brigade comes with a water hose and a water, but the dose at which, the speed at which they will throw it is much higher. But most of the chronic illnesses is a bushfire, where one fire brigade is not enough. So to answer your specific question, very likely chance that yes, there is role of quality nutrients and supplements. And particularly if we have been dealing with the chronic diseases, certain high quality extracts and nutrients are available. They can be, some of them are available over the counter, but a lot of good quality ones are supposed to be dispensed by the clinicians who knows this, and it can be done through integrated general practitioners. So if you are interested, you can look into this website, ACNEM. I will repeat, acnem.org, ACNEM. So this is an Australasian College of Nutritional and Environmental Medicine, and I'm one of the active presenter and also member of this organization, which includes a lot of people with allied health plus medical practitioners. So the other one which has been asked is, what does meditation play in regulating our diet? Okay, there is not a direct connection, okay, but certainly people who are under stress can use a lot of comfort eating. And you don't even realize that you have eaten a ball of chips or M&Ms or any kind of a chocolate, particularly sugar-rich diet or a carbohydrate-rich diet. And sometimes it can deviate towards using some other things to cope. And this is where I see in my professional role as an addiction medicine specialist as well, that it can start with the dietary habits, bad dietary habits, and then it can lead into addictions, which can be starting with the smoking, then cannabis can kick in, and then there are hard drugs like cocaine, amphetamines, and injectables can come in. So when we are doing some meditation activities, okay, then we are able to divert our attention to certain ways where you can regulate your mind in a much better way, rather than using these bad food habits. And certainly, once we have a better control over our mind, very likely chance that you will be able to bear control over how choices you will make regarding your food. So it is not a direct connection, but there's an indirect connection. And this is something which we all have to understand. So other students have asked that, yes, there is a students are studying at odd timings, and suddenly when they eat, can eat at odd timings as well. Well, it's a difficult question to answer because certainly there are competing priorities during the course of the day. Now, I would suggest to you that those students who have been eating or are staying longer could have more healthy fats or protein rich diet in the evening, particularly in the time of when they want to, if they think of having a snack. So in supermarkets, sometimes you can get some protein balls. Okay, they are rich in proteins and healthy fats. You can incorporate them. You can have that MCT oil, which I've mentioned as well. You can make a like a uh, like a smoothie or something, so that at least helps you to improve. Uh, and certainly, if you incorporate that, then the chances are that it would be much better. Now, for all the students, I would like to tell you, okay, that anytime when we sleep between 9 p.m. and midnight, so any extra hour we sleep between 9 p.m. and midnight, we get benefit of 2. So those students who have been listening or who want to say from a IT perspective, okay, our brain doesn't have a good hard drive or a solid state drive which we can store memories. That's why we don't remember things. So at nighttime, what happens is that the night supervisor comes in, and that's melatonin, and he calls certain subcontractors to clean the brain. So these cleaning the brain is the different phases of sleep. And if you want to have improvement in your study or potential of your learning, you need to have proper balancing, particularly your consolidation of your REM sleep. And that's where, and you must have heard this saying, let me sleep over it. So a lot of times, some of the discoveries have been done where we have been relaxed. So to answer some of this question is that when we are in these relaxed mode, and that's where the meditation comes in, you will be able to actually learn better and you will be absorbing things better. So please, sleep is not a pill, it's not found in pharmacy, it is something you have to incorporate. And another thing which I would suggest to all the students is to have a Wi-Fi detox. Okay, please do a search on electromagnetic waves and its impacts on sleep. So especially if you're having some electronic clocks or your gadgets, then the chances are it will have an impact on your circadian rhythm of your brain cycles and have an impact on sleep. And so sleep is a very, very important aspect of our health, and supplements will not work if you're not sleeping. Then there is another question person has asked about that he has put on weight and they have a high cholesterol. And if you could see from my presentation, I've answered or raised this point that when we are actually munching, there's always a tendency that we tend to eat more junk food. So if you could change your food habits to more proteins and fats, very, very likely chance that you will start to make some changes. Now, again, I can give you in the form of an analogy that I often come across is that if you go to a gas station, there are 3 choices of putting fuel. Okay, 91, 95, 98. We all know 98 is a good fuel, but we cannot put it because it's costly. But if you start making some octane 98 lifestyle, which is more plant-based, healthy fats, proteins, and some movement, chances are that you will do well. And it is a completely reversible illness. So some of the documentaries which I've in my shared section I've talked about, you please watch them and you will get some idea. And particularly this documentary, What the Health, okay, on Netflix. So somebody has asked me about fake meat. Well, I would stay away from all processed food, because whenever there is a processing of the food is done, there are a lot of chemical and binders are added, and I would stay away from them. Now, certainly some of the students have asked about their busy schedule and their meditation. Then, well, yes, what I would say, busy people have more time. That's a very famous saying. Okay, so if you make things meditation as a priority, as a part of your diary or a schedule, very likely chance that you will be able to do it. Another person has asked about that they are addicted to coffee. And well, I've already answered this, that if you start making some changes in the diet where coffee could be added with some healthy fats and cream and just do it, chances are that you will be do not require a larger amount, like couple of 1 or 2 cups are okay in a day. And then you will see that not only your performance will improve, but overall you will feel well as well. So I hope I have answered majority of your questions, and I could see a significant amount of enthusiasm among all of you in this area. And as a professional, I could say that certainly change always starts from in a small way. We start thinking that no, it's not, cannot be done. But start making changes in your breakfast from tomorrow. Okay, whatever I have recommended, plus making changes that tomorrow your breakfast would be more plant-based and healthy protein sources are there. And then you will and start making those changes. And once you start doing it bit by bit, you will see that the results will be coming in. And in my personal practice, out my experience, I have seen people making a completely turnaround in a lot of improvement in their health in few months. Okay, so I hope this was something useful, and I could have chances taken more questions, but certainly please do try to attend tomorrow another sessions from our Heartfulness team related to meditation around midday. Thank you very much.